at the end of the day, I be telling people all the time, we out here trying to act like it's all about us. Most of us, our time has passed. And I'm being honest about that. Like we need to be pouring in,
Yes.
yeah, pouring into the children and you know what I'm big at? Preparing myself to be an elder to those children.
It's showtime. Come in and have a drink with the whole crew. Come on and join the panel or draw from the chat. Do it how you wanna do.
Because at the end of the day, I be telling people all the time, we out here trying to act like it's all about us. Most of us, our time has passed. And I'm being honest about that. Like we need to be pouring in,
Yes.
yeah, pouring into the children and you know what I'm big at? Preparing myself to be an elder to those children. To be the elder that I didn't have. Right. So when a child comes to me and talk to me about some things, I can say, read this literature, try this tea, just be an ear to listen to and give wise counsel. I'm also, while I'm working on myself, I'm also preparing myself to be that type of elder, not just for my
Mm.
grandchildren and my children, but for their friends, right? And for any
Wow.
child that I will come in contact with. So I'm big on the children. You know me, I'm big on parenting. Parenting is a passion of mine because I think a lot of our injuries come out of the homes that we come
Parenting, yeah.
out of. Yeah, for real, whether intentional or not.
And that's important too. Now, I'm gonna ask you like one more question because you just said that, and I know we talked about mothers on your channel a few weeks back, and I know it's not just mothers; the fathers, whether they're there or absent, play a part in whatever dysfunction too. But even if you're doing everything right, there's just something about our human nature that we're going to find a problem.
Yeah.
So even if you did everything loving and wholesome and protective, even when you turn 18, you're going to resent your parents about something like, oh, they just wouldn't, they love me too much, they protected me. There's going to be something, no matter how well you did, they're going
Agreed.
to find a problem. So
Agreed.
once you become an adult, what then is, how do we come out of that blaming the last generation? How do we quit blaming? What was your work in internalizing accountability as opposed to externalizing responsibility?
So I'm gonna at some point I'm gonna talk about this, but okay. So something as simple. Oh, okay. So maybe I shouldn't talk about this here. Okay, let me switch. Um, no, no, no. I went through something recently. With not with my mom, but something that some people will be like they would not talk to their parents about afterwards. But I'm an adult. By the time that this was done, I'm already an adult. Um, I think that we really don't understand how parents try to just give their best, even when their best isn't half enough. When we become parents ourselves, that's when we really see it. We talk all that big stuff until we have children ourselves, right? But even if you don't have children, you have to know that living in the past of what happened to you, and we talked about this yesterday on my channel, where no one is coming to save you, right? So sitting up and waiting for that sorry from your parent, that may never come, because let's be honest, Black mothers don't apologize that much. Black parents, Black fathers don't apologize that much. There's a whole bunch of those of us who are adults hoping and wishing that our parent would apologize about something, and that parent feel like, listen here, listen here. Okay? I struggled and put food in your mouth, clothes on your back. Okay? I make sure that you were at school, you asking me for an apology for when I did what? You know what I'm saying? So a lot of us come from homes where we are not ever, ever, ever going to get the apology. My question to you is, what are you about to do about it? What if you never get the sorry? What if you never get the apology? What if you never get the reconciliation? Are you willing to live your life stunted? Are you willing to live your life without growth? Are you willing to not move forward? Right? You have to act like it's never going to happen. So you got to get to a point, and that's where the self-work comes in, I think, right? Whether it's going to talk to a therapist, Most people I know who went to therapy for things like that have to write letters to their abusers, right? To the people that have hurt them, because they try talking to them, and the person, whether it's a parent or a friend or uncle, whoever, they try to minimize the situation, which made it worse for the person. So they had to go to therapy. They make them do things like write letters. There's a reason. It's because you got to get those feelings out. And the issue with a lot of us is that we think there's only one way to get the feeling out, and that is to tell the person and hope that they'll apologize. And that day may never come. And I feel for the people who refuse to move or grow or move forward in life without an apology. I feel for them. An apology that may never come, Arshawn. It may never come, because you might come from a womb, you might come from a parent who really don't see anything wrong with what they did, because it was also done to them. So my thing with that is, like, when it comes to like parenting, I'm really passionate about parenting, because I really believe that a lot of us we're jacking our children up, and we're trying to blame everything but ourselves. We're trying to blame the community. We're trying to blame the system. We're trying to blame the government. We're trying to blame all these other people. And we just somehow we leave ourselves out of the blame game as parents. Okay? Because we think as long as we are feeding and clothing children, that we are doing an honorable thing and we should be rewarded for it. No, you're doing the basic. You're doing what you're supposed to do. Okay? Parenting, really good parenting, you have to go above and beyond, to be honest. Okay? Parenting is not as simple as clothing and feeding your children. Have you been there for them? Okay, when they came to you with a sensitive topic, maybe they were trying to come out the closet. Maybe, something happened to them. They were abused. How did you respond to that? Maybe they came to you and they were in love. Did you respond to your daughter and say, go sit your fast ass down? You hot in the pants? Did you make her feel like a whore? You know what I'm saying? Did you minimize it simply because of her age? Like, we got to look at things like that. So I think that a sister said, our parents are our first bullies.
Yes.
When I heard that, I said, you ain't never lied. Okay. And we also need to find a way to have these conversations without completely marginalizing and demonizing our parents. That's the issue there. A lot of people are afraid to have the conversation because they feel that it's disloyalty. But two things, and this is what I want us to start to understand. We need to understand nuance. Two things can be true at the same time. I can love my mother, and I can acknowledge that she injured me. One does not have to negate the other. I can love her and still acknowledge that she injured me. I can also acknowledge that she injured me, and yet still she loved me. Right? This is the issue we're having. We think that the two things have to oppose each other, right? We think that the two things cannot occupy space at the same time. And so then what we decide to do is we just stay away from the conversation. And I think these conversations need to be had freely and respectfully, whether it's in these spaces, in private, get your sister circles, whatever needs to be done, the conversations need to be had, because people need an outlet. And therapy is not the only option for people. There are other forms of therapy. It not necessarily always have to be on a clinical level. Okay? Having a sister circle, having a brother circle where you're discussing these issues is very therapeutic. So we even have to rethink how we perceive therapy, or how we define therapy, and what's considered therapeutic and what's not. So yeah, I know I said a mouthful there.
No, that's beautiful. Like, I promise you, I love when you said mouthful, because you impart so much wisdom. That's why I always say you're a master teacher. You know what I'm saying? Because you say a lot, but all of it has value. Like, I know you spend a lot of time on this online space, and there are a lot of people that'll run for 5 to 10 minutes and you won't have gained anything from it. But you'll say a lot and it'll validate somebody. It'll confirm what somebody already felt or believed, and like, I'm not crazy. Or it'll give somebody that insight that, okay, that's the next step I need to take. Because there are little mental steps. There are personal, relational steps. There are so many stairs we need to ascend to get further along in life. And I think you have a lot of wisdom in that vein that doesn't just go to women, even though that's why I like your channel, even though you're talking a lot to women. a lot of what you're talking about is human behavior,
Yeah.
like overcoming fears, overcoming obstacles, overcoming shortcomings. A lot of it is just continuing to ascend, persist. Yes, you might have dropped the ball. Persist. Okay. Yes, this might have happened to you. Persist. How do you do it? You also give insights into how did you get through it, because what they say, like with sports, there's a good portion of it that's mental, not just your actual circumstance. It's how you perceive your circumstance that plays a heck of a lot of a part of how you enter into it. So I know that the mental game is a lot more important a lot of times than your actual circumstance, how you approach a thing, how you feel about yourself during it, because guilt and shame and almost everything you talk about, guilt and shame plays a part, because that's why we enter a space wounded, because we're carrying guilt and shame and we can't come in confidently to do whatever work needs to be done. So we have a barrier, a big one. Before we can even get to work, we're working on guilt and shame. We're trying to show up a whole human in a space where we're supposed to be showing up to work, which is like what we talked about with the drugs. Some people are leaning on drugs to deal with the guilt and shame of a trauma. So we have so many barriers to overcome just to be productive, to be functional. So I really love everything you say, because you address all of that. So like you said, therapeutic, even though you're not a therapist, it's therapeutic.
It's therapeutic.